All right, y'all, we are going to get started. I know folks are still trickling in, but I am just so eager to get to these incredible speeches and welcome you all to Soapbox Nation. This is a big deal. Here we are gathered to celebrate youth voice, and in particular, these 13 powerful young speakers who are bravely speaking out about the issues that matter to them on this national stage. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm thrilled to see each of you. I'm so glad everyone keeps pouring in. Here we are at an audience of 85 already. I'm thrilled to see you all. My name is Mia. I'm with Mikva Challenge. For those of you who know Mikva, you know that we believe the best way to learn about our democracy is by doing democracy, by participating in it. Maybe you've seen our shirts that say democracy is a verb. And we believe that starts with young people standing up, speaking out on the issues that matter to them, developing their own civic identity and advocacy skills. At Mikva, we are all about the power of young people. We know what y'all have to say matters. We know that our communities and our country is stronger and better when young folks are involved and engaged and speaking their minds and working to create the future that they want to see. So this is why we are here. We are thrilled. A little bit of context. So this year, thousands of young people across the country, 15 states, kindergarten through 12th grade, have been getting on their soapbox and answering the question, what is the most pressing issue facing young people today, and what should be done about it? So this is happening in classrooms. In some places, there were school-wide, citywide, regional showcases all over the country. And today, there are 13 speakers who have been chosen to be on this national stage to share their voices. And we are lucky enough to get to hear what they have to say. Really get ready to be inspired, get ready to learn, get ready to be motivated to take action on all of these issues by the time we leave. We're in a special space here. We're in a special space. And I would love to know who is joining us in this special space. Please share in the chat where in the country or the world you are. I know we got some international folks, including one of our speakers, and something you are looking forward to this summer. Just so we can start to get to know who we're sharing the space with. Oh, fabulous. We got Delaware in the house. We got New Hampshire in the house, New York, California, Chicago, DC. Okay, everyone, awesome. I'm here in St. Louis. We've got Maryland. Someone, Elka's looking forward to swimming and camping. That was gonna be my answer too. We got music in the city, vacations with family. Please keep introducing yourselves in the chat. It's really nice to get to know who we're sharing the space with. Appreciate you all sharing that. I want to talk about some goals and norms, what we're doing here today. So our first goal is that our featured speakers really get to use this stage to amplify their voices beyond their classroom, beyond their city or even their state. They get to be heard by folks coast to coast, peers, civic leaders. I know parents, educators, community members. We got a lot of different folks in the audience, and this is a chance for our speakers to spread their message. For all of us here who are listening, and that is everyone, we are all here to listen. And part of the goal is that we're exposed to new perspectives, new ideas, that we walk out of here or close our computers and feel inspired and ready to keep the conversation going. Of course, our goal, this is a Mikva event after all, we are centering, we are celebrating youth voice. That is what we are all about. Our norms, so how we're gonna share this virtual space together today. We're gonna be really respectful and positive. We know that our speakers have worked so hard to get to this point. They are sharing of themselves, they're speaking their truth. We are going to be respectful and bring that good energy here. We're gonna keep an open mind and listen to understand. You know, part of the speaking, the other half is the listening. And we have young people from all different parts of the country, different perspectives, experiences. What an amazing opportunity to learn from each other. We don't even all have to agree, right? We can agree to disagree. Being in a democracy does not require us all to be the same. It requires us to be listening and learning and engaging in these conversations together. After every single speech, this is really important. After every single speech, the whole audience is going to give that speaker wild applause. No golf claps here. We are cheering, we are pounding on the table, maybe we're snapping, we're clapping, and we're all gonna do that off mute. I know it's a little crazy on Zoom, but we really wanna show our speakers some love. So I actually wanna practice that right now. On the count of 3, we're gonna go off mute, we're gonna give some wild applause, and then we're gonna mute ourselves again so that we can continue on and you can hear me. So on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Woo! Yeah, that's the kind of wild applause I'm talking about. Amazing. Thank you all. Thank you for muting yourselves afterwards. We know how Zoom works. If you're not talking, if you're not giving wild applause, we do have to stay muted so the audio doesn't get crazy. But the good news is we can use the chat to show our speakers some love. That's where that respect and the positivity really needs to shine through so we can cheer on our speakers. Not a space for critique or debate. It's really a celebration here, and the chat's a great space to celebrate. Also, speaking of celebrating, if you are on social media, tell the world about this. More people need to know that there is a movement of young people who are taking a stand and speaking out and working towards change. So tag us, we will definitely retweet, repost, all that good stuff. Yay, oh, we got folks in Spain, awesome. All right, so today's agenda, this is what you can expect. Of course, after our welcome and introductions, technology glitch. All right, after our introductions, I will start calling on our speakers one by one to unmute themselves and give their speech live. We will all listen closely. We will cheer them on in the chat. We will give them wild applause afterwards. And then once we've all muted ourselves again, I will call on a civic partner to give some feedback out loud to our speaker, to ask them a question, something that's lingering from what they heard in the speech. And then we'll move on to our next speaker. At the end, we will close out with a little reflection. So that's what you can expect today. And also just want to set the expectations that we are not choosing a winner here. Really, all our speakers are already winners. Here they are on the national stage. They're bravely using their voices, and to get totally cheesy, but really true, we are all winners when young people are speaking up and engaging in the issues that matter to them. So there's no first, second, third place kind of stuff happening. It's a celebration. It's a chance for us to listen and amplify their voices. I want to talk about our civic partners. These are awesome folks, community leaders who are here, not just to listen to our speakers, but oops, oh, I skipped ahead, huh? Okay, back to it. There we go. Technology. So they're awesome adults, and we have a young person too who will be giving our speakers feedback, listening closely, asking questions. We're so grateful to each of our civic partners for being here. It really is meaningful. And I would love for our civic partners to introduce themselves now. So if you could, I will call on you one by one to share your name, your organization or company, who you're representing, and just one word to describe how you're feeling right now. Julia, can I ask you to go first?
Sure, I'm feeling really excited to, excited, one word.
Great, and who are you representing?
I am with the Pollinger Family Foundation. We are located in DC.
Fabulous, thank you. Miles, I saw you enter from the waiting room. Would you mind going next?
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. Miles Sandler. I am from the Ewing Marion Kaufman Foundation, and I'm also a national board member from Mikva. And I am, how am I feeling? How am I feeling? I'm anticipating all the amazingness that's about to happen.
Love it. Thank you. Saul, could you go next?
Sure thing. Hi, everyone. My name is Saul Saravia. I'm in Los Angeles. I am a member of the National Board for Mikva, and I'm giddy. I can't wait to hear all of this great presentation. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. We are so grateful. Amy, would you mind introducing yourself next?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I am general counsel at cameo.com. Video shout outs, just like we're shouting out here in a much better way. I'm also a national Mikva board member since 2009, and I am so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Amy. Christy, would you introduce yourself?
Thanks. I'm Christy Uchida. I'm with the Brinson Foundation, a family foundation in Chicago that supported Mikva for a long time. I would say I'm electrified to be here.
Ooh, good word. Thank you so much. And Ailani, I'm going to let you introduce yourself in just a moment, but I want to shout out that Ailani is an alum from both Soapbox Nation and the National Youth Response Movement. So Ailani, would you introduce yourself? Oh, maybe Ailani has not joined the Zoom yet. Well, I know she will. I know she's excited to be here. We'll keep an eye out for her, but just really deep gratitude to each of our civic partners for being here, for listening to what's on the mind of young folks, for sharing your feedback afterwards. How that feedback process is going to work is before each speech, I will give you all a heads up for which civic partner is on deck to give feedback afterwards. Once the speech and the wild applause has wrapped up, I will call on that civic partner to share some affirmations, what resonated with you about the speech, and ask any questions of our speaker. They're here in the room, so it can be a bit of a conversation. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I am going to move us right along because I know we are here to listen to our speakers, so I want to give us a chance to get started and listen to what they have to say. Our first speaker, I just want to say our first speaker is an example of why we should never underestimate young people, no matter their age. She is a first grader from New York City. Cadence will be talking about bullying, and I'm so excited for her to share her speech with each of you. Cadence, are you ready?
Yeah.
Awesome. Go ahead and take it away. The mic is yours.
Hello, my name is Cadence Pinola de Leon. I am 6 years old and a first grader at PS 390Q, the Civic School of Bayside Hills. Today, I am talking to you about how to stop and prevent bullying. Bullying is when someone or a group of people are mean to someone else. It could be by hitting, yelling, or saying hurtful things. That messes around with the person's feelings. Did you know that 1 in every 4 children are bullied at school, at home, in the community, or even online? The reason this is such a big issue is because bullying is not kind and people can be hurt in many different ways, including physically, mentally, and emotionally. Imagine a world where everyone is kind to each other. This would be a fun world for us to play and live in. Our differences would be accepted and people would have more empathy and little fear. This can happen if we stop and prevent bullying. Tools we have to use to work on this issue are sharing posters, sharing stop bullying websites and videos, sharing our feelings, speaking with social workers, and supporting the person being bullied. It is also important that we understand the bully and talk to them about their actions and teach them why it's hurtful and wrong to bully anyone. Joining peer groups and therapy can help too. The time for a change is now. So I'm calling on all of you. I need you to take a stand to help stop and prevent bullying. If you see something, say something to an adult or trusted guardian. Share laughter and share a smile. Always be kind to us and be the one good friend to help save a life and fix a broken heart. Thank you.
Go, Cadence.
Incredible.
Cadence, I hope you can hear that wild applause coming at you from all over the country. Congratulations. I didn't give Christy a heads up beforehand. My apologies, but Christy, would you please give Cadence some feedback and ask any questions you might have?
Of course. Oh, Cadence, congratulations. That was just so exciting. And I think there was lots of positive feedback in the chat that I totally agreed with. Your hand motions really added to your message. Your enunciation was so clear. I understood everything you were saying, but it just brought it to that next level when you did the hand motions and used your inflection in your voice so well. I also really like the structure of the speech. You gave us some really actionable things to do about bullying. So it's just so impressive for someone in first grade to be doing what you're doing. Thanks so much. You just have such a bright future ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christy, and thank you so much, Cadence. Really appreciate you being our brave first speaker. I am going to call up our next speaker now. Koji is in, I'm going to get him spotlighted. There we go. Is in Riverside, California. He'll be talking about protecting voters' rights. Koji, we are listening to you. Take it away.
Across our country today, many people are promoting laws that they claim help with election security, but in reality, they are making it harder for minority communities to vote. Hi, my name is Koji Cephas, and today I'm going to talk to you about the issue of voting rights and the restrictive laws that are taking these rights away. According to CNN.com, over 15 states have passed 30 laws that restrict voting rights, especially for disadvantaged communities. The Brand Center for Justice says that some of these laws try to eliminate mail-in voting, weekend voting, reduce the number of polling places, and even make it a crime to give someone food and water while waiting in line to vote. How do these laws impact citizens' voting rights? Well, for example, by reducing the number of polling places in working class communities, people who have limited means of transportation or have jobs or family responsibilities that limit their free time will be less able to vote. If they are somehow able to make it to the polls and they're waiting in a long line, sometimes for many, many hours, one state has even made it a crime for volunteers to give these voters food or water. The result is that these laws will make it harder for people to exercise their right to vote. We should be encouraging people to vote so that everyone who wants to vote is able to do so. Even though some people are passing laws to restrict people's voting rights, we have tools to combat them. For example, in some places, Election Day is a state holiday. Other states send each registered voter a mail-in ballot. There are other things we can do to help people vote. We can pass a Voting Rights Act that can prevent the passage of restrictive voting laws. For example, the John Lewis Advancement Act is proposed legislation that would help restore and strengthen parts of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which were struck down by the Supreme Court. Imagine a world where everyone could vote. If everyone were able to vote and know about the importance of voting, we could elect people to address important issues like gun violence, immigration, and climate change. We need to address these issues because they are important and are not going away. Currently, laws to address these important issues are not being passed because not enough people who would benefit from such laws are voting. Even though some of us are too young to vote, one thing you can do is to inform your community about the importance of voting and the dangers of these restrictive voting laws. Many people who can vote don't vote because they don't realize how important it is. A lot of people don't know about the restrictive voting laws that are making it harder for people to vote. We need to make the simple act of voting easier, not harder, and we need to fight these restrictive voting laws. Please help inform your community about these important issues. We need to fight these issues one step at a time, and if you inform your community about the importance of voting, we will be one step closer to making it easier for everyone to vote and to addressing the important issues affecting all of us. Thank you for your attention and thank you for listening to my speech.
Wow, congratulations. Thank you so much. I am adding Amy here to give you some feedback. Oh, with a friend.
Yes. Hi, this is Coconut, who also loved Koji's speech. Koji, I have to say, I was so moved by your speech. I thought you were so eloquent. Your tone was so good. I loved your hand gestures, but honestly, your message is so important to so many. And the fact that you even have a t-shirt to help you really get your message through, I loved it. I also thought that you were really good in not just explaining how restrictive voting measures hurt so many people, but you also explained how important it was for people to vote because certain issues will go unaddressed if people don't vote. Because I think some people do the speeches and they just say why people should be able to vote, but they don't explain what happens when people can't vote. So honestly, you tackled a very, very challenging subject in such a good way that was easy for me to understand and easy for me to get behind. So honestly, thank you so much, Koji, for your time and your speech. It was a great, great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Koji. Thank you, Amy, for your words, for your feedback. Congratulations. What a powerful way to get things started with Cadence and Koji. I am going to take us now to Elka's speech. Elka is coming to us from Weir, New Hampshire, and we'll be talking about cafeteria waste. Elka, are you ready?
Yes.
Go for it.
I have been homeschooled my entire life until August 30th of this year, when I came to public school for the first time. One of the first things that I noticed was the cafeteria's trash can. It really bothered me that they were so full. I sit there and watch the cafeteria monitors take at least 2 bins out every lunch period, and most of it is uneaten, fully packaged food, like this. Hi, my name is Elka Fuller. I'm in 7th grade, and my project is on the cafeteria waste problem. This problem may seem small at first, but after taking a closer look, it's enormous. The expanding footprint of agriculture for food is one of the biggest causes for loss of habitat. And it also increases the world's greenhouse gas emissions. Unfortunately, much of that food is thrown into landfills, causing even more greenhouse gas to be produced. Greenhouse gases are gases in the Earth's atmosphere that trap heat. The trapped heat then does things like melt glaciers, causing water levels to rise. This brings us to the cafeteria. Kids eat the best tasting parts and throw the vegetables out. In fact, 530,000 tons of food waste come from cafeterias in the US each year. About 29.6 million kids use the food provided, and each of these kids produce about 40 pounds of waste each year. Imagine, that is about the weight of a medium-sized dog. Still, 17 million children are starving in the US alone after the pandemic. There must be some way to reduce this waste. This is not commonly discussed as a climate change contributor, so there are not many easy ways to stop it. Yet, after thinking for a while, I did think of some ways to fix it. There should be 2 bins other than the normal trash can. One bin can be fully packaged food to be donated. We could definitely find someone who needs it and will eat it. Also, for when kids don't eat their food, controversial topic, and many people try to help. There are so many ways, and it's not hard. You could even make a petition or write a note to the principal to assist in stopping this waste. When you hear about this problem, don't just sigh and dismiss it. Think about ways to help decrease cafeteria waste and stop climate change. Just remember, a little bit helps, but a lot will save the world. Thank you.
Congratulations, Elka. Thank you so much. Saul, would you be able to give Elka some feedback?
Yes, absolutely. Alka, fantastic job. I really appreciate you teaching us something that not a lot of us think of, the way you pointed out in your speech. And I really appreciated the time that you took to walk us through a description of how the problem you wanted to describe was connected to other things that maybe people think about first or might say they care about primarily, but didn't connect to this issue. I thought that part was really well researched and really well explained. I also really appreciated at the end of your speech that you gave us a very specific example, which is writing to the principal that illustrated your closeout point, which is that even small steps will lead to big changes. And that is the important message we want around raising our voices. It always makes a difference, like a little grain of sand. Thank you so much, Elka. That was a fantastic job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Saul. Thank you, Elka. Really grateful for both of you. I got a preview of these speeches and I'm still just having a lot of feelings about how fabulous they are. I'm going to bring up our next speaker now. Kennedy will be speaking to us from Chicago, Illinois on invisible disabilities. And Miles, you will be on deck to give Kennedy feedback. Kennedy, are you ready? We are listening to you. Take it away.
Imagine this. You were born with something that hinders your ability to do day-to-day activities, but you're living in an environment where people like you are constantly mocked and belittled. They don't realize that you're one of the people that they're mocking. Well, that's me. I have hypermobility syndrome disorder. It's a genetic condition that I've inherited from my dad. It's a protein disorder that affects the connective tissues, primarily my skin and joints. My personal experiences with this that it's hard for me to do day-to-day activities without my joints dislocating. The first time I dislocated a joint was in 2019 during the summer. My parents told the school about certain things that the doctor said to watch out for, but they didn't really make an effort for me nor acknowledge my condition. Whenever I asked for help, I'd be told things like I was over-exaggerating and dismissed. I would still be expected to do things as if I were an able-bodied person. I was in pain constantly, but no one batted an eye. Why? Because it's an invisible disability. This made me realize how overlooked invisible disabilities are. People have the mentality that the only valid disabilities are the ones that you can see or the ones you can tell by the way people act. 25% of Americans have a disability, and 80% of those have invisible disabilities. The only representation we get in the media aren't even really disabled. For physically disabled people, they would show them in a horrible accident with a tragic backstory. They're never just born with one. It has to be a sad, tragic accident. For people with mental disabilities, they portray them as murderers who need to be locked up, crazy people who need to be restrained, or the aloof, quirky one who acts in a childlike manner. The reason they never show invisible disabilities is because it isn't as interesting to them nor the audience. They never show real people with real disabilities, just the people who play the part. Because we can fix this issue. So many disabled kids are overlooked and bullied with no accurate representation for people who look like them. They can't just watch TV and say, hey, someone who's like me. The lack of accurate representation causes a negative outlook on people with disabilities. Disability should start by being normalized and accepted in our society. End the negativity, end the negative stereotypes, and end the hate.
Thank you so much, Kennedy. Miles, I'm going to turn it to you to give Kennedy some feedback.
Well, Kennedy, first of all, thank you for bringing up this topic. This is personally very meaningful to me. I'm somebody that is dyslexic, had a lot of different learning disabilities that oftentimes people didn't see. And my brother is on the spectrum, and oftentimes because he was high functioning, people didn't see that either. But it affected the way that we had social relationships. And I really appreciate that you call that out, and that you're just bringing voice to an issue that's so important to so many young people and just so many adults as well. But I do have a question for you. Can I ask you a question? Okay, awesome. So if you were going to make one change in the way that your school dealt with young people that had an invisible disability, what would it be?
I would like, I would say that they should hire more people who are like have an expertise on it to like help them rather than just people who can come to talk to you. Because like anybody can really do that. Like you need somebody who can like understand you on a personal level by like having a disability so they can like really talk to you and like relate.
I love that. Thank you so much. I think that is a valuable and doable action. So I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you so much. Uh-oh, Mia, you are.
Sure was muted. 2.5 years in, here we are. Thank you, Miles. Thank you, Kennedy. Really, really grateful. I'm bringing up our next speaker, Nathan here. Nathan is coming, well, actually, he's out of the country right now, but he's representing Anaheim, California, and speaking on missing and murdered Indigenous women. Ailani, you are going to be on deck to give Nathan some feedback afterwards. Nathan, I'm passing the mic to you.
Okay. When we hear the words Native and Indigenous, many people picture an image of someone barely clothed with colors streaked on their skin and feathers attached to their heads. An image created by false and harmful stereotypes that have been inflicted on Native people for centuries. We tell ourselves that these people are simply just a myth and treat them as if they are non-existent in modern society, when in reality, these people still thrive and live among us today. Unfortunately, many people are unaware that Native women face murder rates that are 10 times the national average, and due to a variety of obstacles, these cases rarely receive any justice. When we let their stories be ignored and let their humanity just become another statistic, we ultimately send the message that their lives are irrelevant. According to the Coalition to Stop Violence Against Native Women, 4 of 5 Native women have experienced violence in their lifetime. Furthermore, 710 cases of missing Indigenous people were reported from 2011 to 2020, and of these, 87% were female and 54% were juvenile. These numbers are way more than just statistics. They represent how Native women are constantly dehumanized, hypersexualized, and face racism, not to mention other layers of oppression based on gender and sexual identity. This issue is ultimately a consequence of our country's history of colonization, during which Native people were dehumanized, labeled as savages, forced to alter their gender norms, and even deprived of land and rights. So what can we do about this? To address the violence enacted towards the Native community, it is important that we enforce and support laws made to assist the community and the missing and murdered Indigenous peoples movement. We can start by educating ourselves and following the works of organizations such as the Coalition to Stop Violence Against Native Women. We as a community must come together if we want to spread awareness. We can do this by engaging with trusted friends and adults, as well as using social media to amplify Native voices. Hope is not out of reach. We as a future generation can initiate the change. The Native community have endured the scars of intergenerational trauma for centuries. And to journey towards healing, we as a community must come together and spread awareness. Thank you.
All right, I'm bringing Ailani here to give Nathan feedback, and I just want to give Nathan props. It is 3 a.m. where he is, so an incredible speech and also a late night or early morning. But Ailani, I'll turn it to you to give feedback.
Great job, Nathan. That was a very good speech. Your delivery was very well. And I just think it's very important that, you know, we talk about people of color and like a whole bunch of different groups within America that aren't given equality and that are treated differently because of who they are. And I feel it's so important that you talked about the Native community as well, because it's not often spoke about. So that was you did a very good job, and your statistics were very well, and you also came up with solutions to the problem. And I just think that if we just keep bringing awareness to this, it will help a lot. So great job, Nathan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ailani. Thank you, Nathan. Really, really appreciate you both. I am bringing up our next speaker now. Here we go. Here's Avon, who is representing Rochester, New York, and speaking about dead naming in schools. Avon, I'm turning it to you. Go ahead.
Thank you. I wrote this speech in a document for school, and the first thing in the title is my legal name, Laurel. In fact, almost every document I open for school has this name, Laurel, on it. But the problem is, that name doesn't feel right. Even when I was young, I didn't go by Laurel. I went by my nickname, Poppy. I grew up not knowing how to spell my official name. Before middle school, I could just speak to a teacher to be called Poppy. But now, in middle school, I have to legally change my name to get rid of Laurel showing up everywhere. You see, as I've grown up, I've explored my gender identity more, and I've realized that I do not fit into the female role I was assigned at birth. With those discoveries, I have realized my legal name does not suit who I am. Think about it like this. When I was born, my parents gave me a sweater. But as I grew up, I realized that sweater is not right. It might have been the wrong color, or the wrong texture, or the wrong size. So, I've decided to look for a new one. I might not find the perfect sweater the first time, but eventually, I will find the one that's right for me. The problem is, my school makes me wear that same ill-fitting sweater every day. Society makes me wear that sweater every day. Laurel is a sweater that does not fit. Calling people by a name that they have realized does not fit is called dead naming. When I see my dead name, I feel irked and uneasy. It makes me tense up and curl into my shoulders. According to the CDC, 2% of high school students fall under the trans umbrella. Allowing students to change their name in the system will not only help people who fall under the trans umbrella, it will also help students who use their nicknames as preferred names, like how I used to use Poppy instead of my current dead name. In my own research around my school, 7 out of 24 students wanted to change their name. And that is not a small number. In a better world, we'd have well-known systems in place that not only allow students to change their name in the school district without legally changing it, but also allow students to choose whether they wanted their preferred name to show up where they would like it to show up. For example, if a student were comfortable with their teachers knowing and their peers, but had not told their parents, they could choose to have their preferred name only show up in school documents, while documents sent home would have their dead name. It's important to have options other than legal name changes, because legal name changes aren't very accessible. In New York State, a name change costs anywhere from $65 to $210. That's an insane amount of money that not a lot of people can afford. Another challenge for kids is that they have to have a parental approval for a legal name change. This can be a problem if the person's parents aren't supportive. So there must be another way. I think the best way to do this is to have school counselors be the ones to change students' names in the system. It would also need to not require parental signature, due to the fact that some students don't want their parents to know yet, and other parents aren't supportive, sadly. During this process, the student would also be allowed to choose their name where their name is shown. Another option that should be accessible is the Dead Name Remover Chrome extension. This allows students to change their name only on their device. It's super easy to set up, and after that, never needs to be touched again. We need to make name changes more accessible for students so that people can find the right sweater and feel more comfortable in their community. Thank you.
Woo!
Yeah!
Woo! Thank you, Avon. Julia, I'm bringing you up to give some feedback. Go ahead, Julia. Oops, you're
Avon,
muted.
thanks so much for sharing your story with us. You spoke so eloquently and calmly about such an important topic, and I really appreciated the vulnerability you expressed by sharing your own personal story with everyone. I love the thoughtful solutions that you created. And I think as people are saying in the chat, I had no idea about the Chrome tool. So clearly there's a lot of education that we all need to make this a better issue. So thank you for taking the time to share with us tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you, Avon. Really, really appreciate you both sharing right now. I am actually going to share my screen. Our next speaker, there we go. Our next speaker could not be here tonight, but I wanted to make sure to still elevate his voice because he has a very important speech, and here we are, an audience eager to hear him. So please show him love in the chat. We will certainly share this with him afterwards. This is Harry from Salinas, California, speaking on gang violence.
How would you feel if you didn't have the liberty to walk down your own neighborhood without having fear? How would you feel if wearing the wrong set of colors outside your house meant your possible death? This is the feeling that many teachers have in my community. Hi, I'm Harry Ordiano. Today I'm talking to you about the impact of gang violence on the east side of Salinas. This issue has been prominent throughout the past decades, impacting our community significantly. What I want to focus on today is the influences gangs have on the youth of my community. To put it into perspective, in 2022, 4 people have already been gunned down in the city of Salinas. 2 of these individuals were a couple. They were in 20s who resided in the east quadrant of the city. It was a tragic case of mistaken identity, and the shooters already had previous convictions on gang-related charges. Another case was a high school student of my age who tragically died in a shooting. Additionally, 2 days prior to today, a student of my high school decided to bring a gun to school and endanger his classmates. This trend of youth and gangs needs to end. Although the city of Salinas is praised for being the salad bowl of the world, it has always received a bad connotation for being a place filled with heavy crime. I want this negative stigma of my hometown to change. Imagine a world where teenagers could walk down the street without worrying about running into the wrong group of people. This is what I want for my city. Adolescents shouldn't be worrying about walking down their blocks and wearing specific colors. To realize why these trends are occurring, we need to analyze the background of the city. According to UC Berkeley News, Salinas is home to more than 50,000 farm workers. Most of these laborers reside in the east. Many of these individuals are parents and come home late in the afternoon. That space between school ending and the parent coming home is what we need to focus on. The kid may walk down the wrong street on their way home from school and confront the wrong group of people. Since they have no other option after school, they decide to spend time with them. That space of time needs to be filled with their attendance into a recreational center. Recreational centers such as the Bread Box, the Salinas Boxing Club, and the Hebron Center all reside on the east side. Focusing on these spaces is crucial to ending the pipeline of adolescents into gangs. Having these types of centers will strive away teenagers from joining gangs, and instead, focus on after-school programs that will enrich their learning and discipline. For example, Maria Jardines, a young boxer who attends the Salinas Boxing Club, was able to fight her way through the Junior Olympics in 2017, earning her a second-place finish. Without these spaces, children hanging out with the wrong group of people will evolve into gangs. The city needs to enforce these opportunities so gangs aren't the only options for teenagers, and we see more success like Maria Jardines. Throughout the year of 2021, I attended community-organized meetings that focused on the city budget. My community agreed we needed to raise funds for parks, communities, and libraries. Through these meets, I also learned that the new city budget had their funding for the community service and library category at a low 11%. In comparison, the police receives $52 million, making up 44% of the budget. The category of community development receives $4 million, making 4% of the budget. Increasing the budget for the police does not fix this issue. The city instead needs to allocate these funds towards community development. In order to make a change, we need to show the mayor and the city council our strong thoughts about this topic. My community has already agreed that the distribution of funds towards community development is what we want. So why won't the city government go through it? We specifically need to contact the East Side District member, Tony Barrera. He represents the East Side of Salinas and is who we need to talk to. We need to change the future of my community's youth. Thank you.
got some fans in this room. Really, really glad that we've got the beautiful tools of technology to get to share Harry's voice and vision in this space. Just an incredibly important, thoughtful speech. So I wanted to make sure to highlight that even though he can't be here himself, we're going to share this recording with him. We will share the chat with him. So thanks for sharing your thoughts there. What I'm actually going to do now is give us just a minute to reflect. We have been hearing all these powerful speeches, and I want to give everyone a second to process, to reflect a little bit about what we're hearing before we get into the second half of the speeches. So in a moment, I'm going to send you into breakout rooms just briefly for about 4 minutes or so, so you can connect with folks maybe from a different part of the country than you and share what's resonating with you from these speeches, or a speech that you're relating to, or a speech that taught you something new, maybe questions that you have. I will put these questions in the chat. This is certainly not an assignment, but just an idea of something to get the conversation going and start that reflection, because it's a lot to take in. Good to have some time to process. So I'm going to go ahead and send you all to breakout rooms now to take a moment to reflect and connect with some other folks who really care about youth voice. I will see you back here in about 4 minutes. Welcome back, everyone. I hope that was helpful to have just a moment to process after all these really fantastic and sometimes intense speeches. So thank you for being willing to hop into breakout rooms and meet someone new. I'm going to get us back to our speakers here. Our next speaker is Sierra. She is joining us from Washington, D.C. to talk about D.C. statehood. I'm going to bring her up. There we go. Spotlight for everyone. And Amy, you will be on deck to give Sierra feedback afterwards. Sierra, it's all you. We're listening.
Do you remember what happened on January 6th? Do you remember all those Trump supporters storming the Capitol? Do you remember that feeling of unease as you watched those people storm the Capitol? Did you know that the insurrection could have been prevented? If Washington, D.C. was a state, we would have been able to call in the National Guard, who would have been able to de-escalate the situation. I wonder if the 4 people who committed suicide after the insurrection knew that the help they needed on that tragic day could have been provided if DC was a state. I hope Congress understands that their deaths could have been prevented, but we'll never truly know. What we can do is make sure that nothing like the insurrection ever happens again, at least never happens again in DC. If you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. If DC becomes a state, then DC would have the power and the means to protect itself from threats. DC is subjected to the whims of the federal government, whereas Congress interferes with our local laws, local funding, and operations. DC has all the same responsibilities, but not the same rights as our fellow Americans. DC residents are treated as second-class citizens. During a referendum in 2016, DC residents showed how much they wanted statehood, with an 86% in favor of making Washington, DC the 51st state of America. Washington, DC is large enough to become a state holding over 712,000 residents. DC already has all the responsibilities of a state without all the rights, representation, and privileges of being a state. DC residents pay the highest per capita federal income in the US. I am fighting for DC statehood. How about you? Some people say that DC becoming a state will turn DC into a powerhouse. It will make DC have too much power in one state. It will create an imbalance between states because DC is where the capital is and the White House. There's already an imbalance. DC has no voter representation in Congress, but DC citizens pay federal tax, while states like Alaska, Florida, Nevada, New Hampshire, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Washington, and Wyoming don't even pay taxes. DC isn't even considered a state, and it's already one of the highest tax places in the country. I would say the highest tax state, but DC isn't even a state yet. An imbalance in taxation isn't even the half of it. There's a disparity in the DC education system, voter representation, or should I say lack of voter representation in the White House. How is this not infuriating? This shows how much the government has zero respect for DC as a capital, so why would they take us seriously as a state? But I say, work the system, don't let the system work you. DC must become a state to open up an additional $10 billion per year in federal funds and benefits. This $10 billion can go towards improving the education, public transportation, or even minimum wage in DC. This money could change lives in DC. What's more, DC deserves voter representation in Congress and full control over local affairs. My name is Sierra James. I am advocating for Washington, DC to become the 51st state in the United States. Based on Article 1, Section 8, Congress has the power and authority to make DC a state. We need your support to make Congress act now.
Yay! Woo! Yay!
Thank you so much, Amy. I'll turn it to you to give feedback.
Great job, Sierra. Oh my goodness, you really moved me. I have to say, DC statehood, yes, I'm with you. You've really convinced me, and it really does not seem fair. I think you laid out the all your arguments in such a good way, and in an impassioned way, and in a strong way. So you took such a serious topic, but you made it so that someone who doesn't live in DC could understand your point of view. And honestly, to open up $10 million worth of funding is huge. And I sure hope that you, I hope that you can accomplish your goal. What are your next steps besides educating people like us? What else are you doing to get to statehood?
Advocating to my local lawmakers in DC.
Nice, nice. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. Total joy, and appreciate you taking the time to give us this great speech. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Congratulations, Sierra. We are all grateful to have your voice in this space. Laura, you are next. Bringing you up to the stage. Laura is coming to us from Jefferson County, Kentucky, and speaking on mental health stigma. Miles, you will be on deck to give Laura some feedback. Laura, the mic is yours. We're listening.
All righty. Okay, I'm sorry. I think, okay. Can you hear me? Great.
We can see you and hear you.
Perfect.
Okay, great. So, I write with my right hand. As it moves left to right along a blank piece of paper, it smudges my written thoughts. As my sleeves absorb the ink, the edge of my favorite sweater turns into a light pink. Stop wearing sweaters. Just roll up your sleeves, they say. I'm sorry, I can't. Not even just a bit. My sweaters cover my secrets that I'm terrified to allow in. I get lost in my prayers, I get lost in the pain, I get lost in the relief. You might write your secrets in your diary. I write mine on my wrist. Mental health stigma refers to societal disapproval, where when society places a shame on those who suffer from a mental illness or emotional distress, such as anxiety, depression, or PTSD. This stigma prevents 40% of people who suffer from these from reaching out for help. This stigma is a barrier, an enemy. It's what keeps people away from resilience. Such an overwhelming feeling of doubt. That's what the stigma does to you. It makes you feel hopeless and helpless, with no motivation towards getting better, since no one cares enough to notice or to not blame you for these decisions that you are making for yourself. Today, I challenge this stigma. She is the problem, and I challenge you to break it. It can really be hard to witness someone you love crawl themselves into this deep well of frustrations blinded by its darkness. But there's light. There's a reaching hand at the top of that well, ready to shower you with love, support, acceptance, and zero judgment. How easier could have been if I had trusted that hand sooner? How easier could have been to have so much support to fight this battle and get through? If someone reaches out to you, please listen closely and reassure. Ask what would help them. A mental illness or a disorder isn't something you understand unless you suffer from it. And to be able to help and be helped, you can always reach out to a friend, a teacher, or even contact the hotline. Please reach out, speak up, and break the stigma.
Yay, Laura.
Yes. Miles, take it away.
You got me emotional over here, girl. Like I'm tearing up. Just first of all, like as a poet as well that expresses my reality that way. Thank you for opening up that way. Like I think it deepened the message. It made it personal. It connected in a way that was beyond just kind of the argument. And it made it really, really unique. And so I really appreciate the way you opened that. And I also appreciate that importance of the topic, right? Like this is the moment that we're in, and so many young people are challenged right now. And so I'm just so glad that you are elevating this topic, that you're raising up the voices of your, classmates and folks that are in your age range right now, because it's so important. So I love to ask at least one question. What is something that you would love to see, whether it's a program, whether it's whatever, but something in your school that you would feel like would help young people be able to feel like they have a safe space to address some of these challenges?
I would want kids and counselors and just the people in my school to come together and discuss it out more, because we do talk about it, but we only talk about it to we never dig deep into the problem, and we never actually rip off the layers of everything that's going on. We kind of just leave it to the surface, and we have to go beneath that surface to actually find out what's wrong and actually get a change out of that.
I love that. I love that. And thank you for your bravery. Just really
Thank
appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Miles. Congratulations, Laura. Really do appreciate your bravery and your voice. I'm bringing Samuel up next. Samuel is going to be talking about the deconstruction of the two-party system. He's up in Marquette, Michigan. And Christy, you are on deck to give him feedback. Samuel, it's all yours. Go for it.
Fellow citizens of the United States, I'm before you today to bring to your attention what may well be the greatest threat to our American democracy in the last half a century. I'm talking about the two-party system. The assertion that I would make to you today is that the two-party system is not only counter to the original intents of our founding fathers and the framers of the Constitution, but also fundamentally damaging to the practice of democracy. In Federalist 10, Madison said that political parties have divided mankind into parties, inflamed them with mutual animosity, and rendered them much more disposed to vex and oppress each other than cooperate for their common good. Vex and oppress. When you look at the riots in our inner cities, when you look at the riots in our capital, does that sound like cooperating for the common good to you? In his farewell address, Washington said that parties serve to organize a faction, to give an artificial and extraordinary force, to make public administration the mirror of ill-concerted and incongruous projects of faction, rather than the organ of constant and wholesome plans digested by the common councils and modified by mutual interests. In other words, what Washington is saying, and what I know now, is that political parties don't serve the American people. They only serve the political elite that control them. Political parties not only mitigate the power of the American people, but they also reduce the power and capability of Congress to get anything done. There was a study done by CeeLo Andrus, David Lee, and Marcus Hamilton, as well as others, that said that in the 1940s, the partisanship of the US government has been increasing exponentially. This effect was not seen until the 1970s, and since then, the number of bills that die before even reaching the Congress floor has doubled, and the number of bills that are killed on Congress floor and never pass have doubled, or have halved, sorry. This means that our Congress is not only discussing less bills and getting more bills to voting, but it also means that they're passing less bills overall. How on earth can issues like gang violence and waste and mental health be addressed on a congressional level while our Congress is stuck in a constant partisan stalemate? Fellow citizens of the United States, I'd like to point out to you that these political parties don't serve the American voice. They don't serve us. They don't serve the citizens. The only people that they help are the people already in power, who quite often use strategies like gerrymandering to control partisan votes and stay in charge. This prevents change, and this prevents a new generation of leaders from rising to the top. What I would encourage you to do is advocate and vote for things like banning straight ticket voting and partisan primaries. Our voice has been mitigated by political parties. It's time for us to get our voice back. Thank you.
Yeah, nice.
All right, Samuel. All right, Christy, it is all you to give Samuel some feedback.
Great job, Samuel. I really liked, you had such a strong start. I think your demeanor really emphasizes like the seriousness of this topic. But you also took like those historic quotes and interpreted them for us today. So, you're giving the meaning of, what some of those founding fathers we're talking about, but then you tied it to the current research around things like the number of bills. I wouldn't know how sort of the productivity of Congress is measured. I didn't know that that's the type of research that's done in this topic. So I learned something. These issues like straight ticket voting and partisan primaries, I haven't thought that much about how that affects this polarization that we have right now, but we certainly all really understand the polarization. Like we just feel that so much. So to follow Miles's lead, I like this idea of asking a question. Who else do you think should hear your speech? Who else do you want to get this message to?
Voters, really. I mean, the biggest thing we need to vote for third-party candidates and non-party candidates, because at the end of the day, it's the voters not knowing that's maintaining this. So I think it's important for voters to know this.
That's great. Well, congratulations. It was a really strong speech. Thanks, Samuel.
Thank you, Christy. Thank you, Samuel. Congratulations. Whew. So much power in this room. So much power in this room. I am bringing our next speaker, Tamia, let's see. Tamia, you might have to turn your camera on so that I can pin you. There we go. All right, Tamia, you have the microphone. We are listening to you. Tamia is speaking from Metro Detroit, Michigan on reparations. Ailani, you are on deck to give Tamia feedback. Take it away.
America owes us, us, the ones they seized, beat, sold for fees, and forced to work for free, the ones they burnt as they were hung from trees, the ones who cannot breathe as their throats are being crushed by the knees of the police. Yeah, us. America owes us. America owes me and my fellow Black Americans reparations, which are monetary or other compensations payable by a country to individuals for a historical wrong. America has wronged us many times throughout history, but slavery is unarguably the wrongest wrong America has bestowed upon the Black community. We still suffer from the consequences of slavery a whole century later. Our ancestors were forbidden from building wealth that could be passed down throughout our generations. This is why we, Black Americans, have the highest poverty rate compared to the rest of America, and why we tend to live in poorer cities. Reparations will help us defeat those statistics. If America gave us, Black Americans, reparations, I will go to my old neighborhood in Detroit on 7 Mile and John R. and see blocks filled with beautiful homes rather than abandoned, burnt-up houses. If America gave us, Black Americans, reparations, my cousins who go to school in Detroit will have the same resources and opportunities that we have in a school located in a majority white city. If America gave us, Black Americans, reparations, our violent crime rates would decrease because we have healthcare resources that would teach us how to cope with our emotions in healthy, nonviolent ways. Reparations will help us thrive, not only as Black people, but as American people. So I need for America to grant all of its Black citizens with reparations. Reparations will in no way change or erase the horrific past, but they ensure us, Black Americans, a much better future in our country. So, America, you owe us. Hopefully soon the dues will show up. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, I am bringing up Ailani here to give you some feedback. Tamia, thank you so much. Congratulations. Ailani, I'll turn it to you for feedback.
Tamia, that was so great and that was so powerful. And I loved how you talked about the fact that all of the things that has happened in the past to African American people is still so deeply embedded in our communities this day. So that's the least that they could do. It was just a very powerful speech. You did a great job. That's literally, that's all I can say, is that that's the least that they can do, is give us these reparations to just help us repair our communities. We can't change the past, but we can change the future. So that was a very good job. Well done.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you so much. Thanks for your feedback, Ilani. All right, Naveed, our next speaker, I'm bringing him up. Let's see. Naveed, I do need you to turn your camera on so that I can spotlight you. All right. There we go. Thanks, y'all, for bearing with our tech. All right. So Naveed is in Prince George's County, Maryland, speaking on the hunger crisis in Afghanistan. Saul, if you could give Naveed feedback afterwards, that would be fabulous. Naveed, we are listening to you. Take it away.
Okay, hello. Can you guys hear me well? Okay. So I want to start by first asking, do you eat food? Can you starve yourselves for 2 days? We all are very fortunate to consume food at least one time a day. The UN United Nations has shared with the world that 14 million plus children in Afghanistan are starving right now. And 1.1 million of those children are at the risk of severe malnutrition this year in Afghanistan. This is an extremely alarming 35% increase in the number of people facing this crisis since August, when the US military left Afghanistan. This crisis seems to deteriorate second by second as we speak. On October 24, 2021, less than 2 months after the US left, it was reported that 8 children from a single family died due to starvation. We are talking about 4 girls and 4 boys that aged between 18 months and 8 years. 4 boys and 4 girls. These are innocent kids. I want you all to know that my people, Afghans, are dying. Children are dying because they don't have food to eat. Can you imagine your little brother, sister, child crying and facing death because he or she doesn't have food to eat? How would you feel? It's not only 14 million children who are starving. When we include adults, it sums up to 22.8 million human beings facing starvation in Afghanistan, and 8.7 million of those people are at the brink of starvation. That is half of Afghanistan's population suffering. Half of Afghanistan's population. A mother of 6 named Zarghuna, who is 35-year-old, was interviewed about this crisis and how her family is doing. This is what she said. She said, "Me and my husband can go hungry, but we are worried about our children. They cry because they are hungry, and that is so difficult." Parents are watching their children suffer, and it is excruciatingly painful. I myself cannot imagine hearing the cries of your starving child. Must be like a bullet piercing through your chest and leaving them with a severe wound that won't stop bleeding until the cries are shut. Similar to these families, millions of others are going through worse. One of my friends, who was very young in the last year falls, passed away from starvation. The same issue I'm talking about currently as of right now. Now you might say how we can help, how the country, the US, how myself and you are watching this can help. I suggest going to the countryside. You can say the US should send aid to Afghanistan. Talking about aid, there is currently $7 billion on hold. The US government is keeping it on hold, not sending it, because their argument is that half of that money should be given to the people who suffered, or the families who suffered from 9/11, or the descendants of 9/11, in other kind of, in basically in other words, and half of it should be given to the organization in Afghanistan that are basically helping these people. What they're basically taking away that money from those kids, and it is not okay. It is not okay. Absolutely not. And Other things is that the US should send aid to Afghanistan to help the economy and lower the prices of products. Also, everyone can help by donating the least amount, which is $5, on the website called on the website of UNWFP called WFPUSA.org. I'm gonna repeat that website, WFPUSA.org. The $5 is literally 2 days worth of food for a starving child. $5. That is less than a grande latte at Starbucks. A $5 meal at McDonald's comes with tax. $5. I myself envision an Afghanistan where kids and the next upcoming generation have a daily meal on their tables and food to feed themselves without worrying about what they will eat. And these children will be playing sports, going to school, and enjoying a healthy life. So let's help these vulnerable people by putting food on their table. Thank you.
Ooh, yeah, wow.
So I will let you give Naveed some feedback. Naveed, thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, Naveed, that was a very, very compelling speech. I want to thank you for raising awareness and using this platform to give everybody some consciousness and also some solutions about a problem that might be specifically affecting, as you said, your own people, but that should be of universal concern. I thought you did that in an incredibly powerful way. Some of the things that I think made your speech so effective is that you asked questions that caused us to reflect, not just in the opening, but later on in the speech, where you asked people to think about how would we feel if those were things that were happening in our neighborhood, to our families and our communities. And I think that this human connection that your words provoke is like the classic power of a great speech. I think you used visualization very powerfully. You brought in imagery through your words, like the idea of having emotions that felt like a bullet coming through the chest. You know, these are incredibly important techniques that ensure that your message is landing and that people can actually feel what is behind the statistics and the news that they might be seeing, because that also moves people to action. I really appreciated that at the end, when you were describing solutions, you gave people not just the solutions around raising their voice in regards to what our government could do, but also gave them something that they could immediately do today themselves by going to a website, by donating, and having a faster solution to the issue. All of that, I think, made for an incredibly powerful and compelling speech. And I really appreciate it. Thank you for bringing it to us. Great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Saul, and thank you, Naveed. Wow, I cannot believe that we are already on our last speaker. Grace is with us from Wilmington, Delaware. Grace is talking about dress codes in schools. Julia, you are on deck to give Grace the last feedback of the evening. And Grace, we're listening to you. We can't wait to hear what you have to say.
Can you hear me okay?
Sounds good.
Cool. Hi, my name is Grace, and I will be speaking about dress codes. Imagine coming to school expecting a normal day, but instead being pulled from class and publicly humiliated because someone thought your clothes were too short. This is exactly what happened to a student in Florida in 2015 who was forced to wear a shame suit, a shirt and pants emblazoned with the words dress code violation, throughout the rest of the day. At first glance, dress codes may not seem like the most pressing issue at schools. However, they potentially affect the learning experience of every single student. Dress codes have a disproportionate negative impact where they intersect with issues surrounding body type, gender, race, and accessibility, yet no one is untouched by these policies. Dress codes are problematic, largely due to their subjective nature. For example, the Christina School District's dress code, set by our school board, says any garments deemed inappropriately tight, short, or revealing are prohibited during school hours. But whose definition of tight, short, or revealing are we using? Beliefs about modesty often are influenced by individual religious beliefs or discriminatory stereotypes, which are supposed to be excluded from public school policies and practices. This subjectivity makes them discriminatory, causing dress codes to be applied unevenly along race, body type, and gender lines. When my mom raised the dress code issue with my school's administration a few years ago, she was told, boys just get so distracted by girls' shoulders. Sounds pretty silly, right? I mean, I'm attracted to girls and I don't get distracted when one of my female classmates is wearing a tank top. This ridiculous assumption amplifies the problematic culture of victim blaming. Comments like this teach everyone, but especially people who are perceived as girls, that their bodies are distracting and that they are responsible for how people choose to react to them. This assumption has another problematic layer to it, placing boys' education as a higher priority than girls. When a student gets dress coded and removed from class, they miss valuable instructional time, which is far more disruptive to their education than their clothes were to the rest of the class. Female presenting students are disproportionately expected to change their attire to protect the education of boys in their classes. This teaches them that their bodies are the problem, that they are responsible for other people's lack of control, and that their education is less important than everyone else's. Schools even contradict themselves when it comes to dress codes. Some uniforms for school activities have tank tops, short skirts, or tight elements as a required component, like the field hockey, cheerleading, or color guard uniforms. Students have to wear them for athletic events or even during select school days, whether they're comfortable in these clothes or not, and the school never takes issue with that. If students are allowed, and even required, to represent the school in these uniforms, they must not be that distracting. And if they're not that distracting, why can't other students wear similar clothes during the school day? The first time I gave this talk, I wore a tank top to illustrate my point. Today, I wore a close-fitting shirt for that same reason. If I had a different body type, or if someone had different standards, this shirt would suddenly become inappropriate. Did you notice? If you think your ears and brain would have worked just fine regardless of what your eyes saw, you've demonstrated that distraction is not caused by the body of the observed, but by the brain of the observer. Consider that dress codes are not actually about clothes, they're about controlling the bodies in them. The ideal inclusive dress code would be modeled after the sample dress code suggested by Oregon's National Organization for Women, which simply requires the following. Students must wear some type of shirt and pants, or a dress which is both. Primary and secondary sex characteristics must be covered by opaque fabric. The clothing must be suitable for classroom activities, and the clothing must not depict violence, hate speech, or similar topics. Schools might not look much different, but updating the obsolete dress code would have a large effect on the school and outside community overall. It would relieve stress on students and teachers and help students feel more comfortable however they present themselves. Maybe a school can't change all of society overnight, but reforming dress codes is a solid first step towards creating a world where our clothing choices do not determine how we are treated. With what you have just learned, you can take action towards making dress codes in your community fairer and more inclusive. Most school district websites will have information on how to contact the administration to advocate for change, such as email, phone, or public comment at a school board meeting. Please consider reaching out to your local school district so we can take that first step towards creating a better version of our schools and our world. Thank you.
Woo! Yeah, great.
Woo! All right, Julia, please go ahead and give Grace some feedback.
Grace, great job on addressing such a topic that is so emotional for so many kids in schools. So thanks for taking that on. You did, as I said, it's an issue that I know so many students are so passionate about. You did a great job staying focused on the issue and bringing up some really good examples of some of the unseen biases with this practice. I think oftentimes we look at dress codes and just say, oh, it's a dress code, there's nothing wrong with it. And you really uncovered some of the meatier issues underneath it. I also loved the example of what an acceptable dress code can look like. That was eye-opening to see how you can have a dress code and make it not, and avoid all those unseen biases.
Thank you.
I love the questions that people are asking. So I'd love to ask a question of, you provide some great examples of what others can do of contacting your schools, but what do you think your next step is in addressing the issue?
So I have actually already, I've sent my speech to the school board. I am very fortunate to have, to be in a school that has currently at least an administration that doesn't really care about dress codes. But I think that at least in the beginning, I kind of have to, at least for my own school district, I have to wait and see whether or not they change it. But if I don't, I will definitely be probably drafting another email and trying to get it changed until something changes. And I guess if that changes, my next step would be other school districts.
Great job.
Fantastic job. Thank you, Grace. Thank you, Julia. I will remove you from the spotlight. And what I want to do now is just give all of our speakers an enormous round of wild applause. Congratulations to each of you. Congratulations. Truly, we are so grateful to each of you for getting on your soapbox, for speaking out on all of these important issues. I know I learned something. I know I felt something. I know I am really moved to keep working on these issues with you all, alongside you all. Thank you for the work you've already been doing. Your voices are so powerful. And please keep speaking up, keep working to create change. This is just the beginning. The conversation is just starting. I want to thank our civic partners. Really appreciate all of you for your feedback, for your thoughtful questions, for listening to our young people. That is meaningful and something that doesn't happen often enough. So thank you to you, teachers. Our deepest gratitude. Thank you isn't even enough. We know all that you do and more for our young people to lift up their voices and support them. So thank you for being here. And thanks to everyone who's supporting our students and our speakers. Really glad we got to share this space together tonight. In closing, I want to put in the chat a link to all of the speeches we heard. It's a Vimeo playlist, so you can share the whole playlist or individual speeches with folks in your community. If you think they should hear these speeches, I got to tell you, I think they should. They were incredible. Have a fantastic night, and we'll see you next time. Keep speaking up.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.